hit the stage, I can't sleep because I've got so many things going on in my head.
Pinned down by the shackles of the industry, these actors lived in shades of gray. But when God called, they listened. Here are the top 10 Golden Age actors who gave away fame and their reputations in the industry for God. Number 10. Loretta Young. On the surface, Loretta Young was innocent, an actress as moral and sweet as the role she chose to play. But she was so much more than that. Born in 1913, Loretta Young wasn't exactly the glamour queen we know and love. Her birth name was Gretchen, and her story in the industry began when her recently divorced mother relocated the family to Hollywood in hopes of making money by opening a boarding house. Barely out of toddlerhood, Gretchen landed a role in the silent film Sweet Kitty Bel Airs. But while it seemed like the entire family had an acting bug, child acting was actually a necessity. With 3 daughters under one roof, Gretchen, Polly, and Elizabeth all dabbled in the world of child acting, bringing in small but essential paychecks that helped keep the family afloat. Yet, out of the trio, only one sister would rise to legendary status, and that was Gretchen. She was an undeniable beauty with all the makings of greatness. All she needed was the perfect name to match and a way to beat the Matrix. You see, Gretchen was raised in a devout Catholic home. She was sent to parochial schools, including the Ramona Convent boarding school, and priests were regular items in her home during dinner time. This strict upbringing shaped Gretchen's moral code, constantly guiding her on a straight path no matter how far she strayed. After starring in one more silent film as Gretchen Young, the young actress had her name changed for the most whimsical of reasons. After signing a contract with producer John McCormick, Gretchen crossed paths with his wife, actress Colleen Moore, who was immediately drawn to Gretchen's potential, but agreed with Hollywood executives that the name Gretchen didn't suit her ethereal beauty. So Moore christened her Loretta, inspired by her favorite doll. Yes, Loretta Young, the glamorous Hollywood star, was named after an adult woman's cherished toy. But with her delicate doll-like features and enchanting doe eyes, wouldn't you say the name was a perfect match? More than a pretty face, Loretta was a bold, audacious woman who was determined to make her name in the industry. When cast as an extra in a bustling crowd, she'd subtly elbow her way to the front, her flushed cheeks and bright eyes stealing the scene. Nothing could come between Loretta and her fiery ambition to rise to Hollywood royalty, and she fought tooth and nail to ensure it was more than a dream. She even hired a publicist to keep her name out of the scandalous headlines that could tarnish her career. More than anything, she was determined to project an image of being devout Catholic, but this image was harder to keep up than she expected. Loretta Young struggled with internal contradictions, as her true nature often conflicted with the ideals she upheld. She relished the company of attractive men, and had recently gone through a highly publicized divorce from someone who was not a Catholic. Even when she fell in love with the Catholic Spencer Tracy, a red flag remained. He was bound by his faith, which prevented him from seeking a divorce. What more could possibly go wrong? A lot, apparently. To her greatest dismay, Loretta found she was pregnant with Clark Gable's child. They had only been together one time, but the damage was done. Fearing her production company would pressure her into having an abortion, Young made a bold decision to keep her pregnancy and the baby a secret. To her, abortion was a mortal sin, and she was determined to do what she believed was the right thing, and so she set out to fool them all. During the early months of her pregnancy, Young continued filming 2 more movies and made several public appearances. In fact, she purposely filled her schedule with events to appear consumed by work and her social life, making it easier for her to later explain an illness as the result of being overworked. With her baby due in November, she developed a mysterious illness caused by severe exhaustion. Her doctor advised 2 months off from filming, but never revealed her true condition. With the public unaware of her pregnancy, Young secretly gave birth with 0 spotlight. You're probably wondering how the press and fans didn't notice Loretta Young's pregnancy, right? Well, she had a strategy for that too. She cleverly concealed her belly under piles of comforters and pillows before allowing gossip columnist Dorothy Manners to interview her. The resulting article, titled Fame, Fortune, and Fatigue, not only silenced any rumors, but also portrayed Young as radiant and glamorous as ever. Still, Loretta felt a lot of guilt. She had broken her contract's morality clause, faith, and risked disgrace. To save face, Young gave Judy up for adoption and sent her to an orphanage while she cooked up her next plan. After a 19-month absence from Hollywood, Loretta Young shocked everyone by announcing her plans to adopt 2 girls, Jane and Judy. But right before the adoption could go through, Jane's mother changed her mind and wanted her back. And so, Young only adopted Judy, her own biological daughter. With up to 8 films a year, the 1940s were not only a golden era for Hollywood, but also for Loretta Young. In 1947, she won an Oscar for her portrayal of a virtuous woman in The Farmer's Daughter, putting her at the pinnacle of her career. Her films were always light, her characters perpetually chasing happiness, but the real question was, did her personal life follow the same script? In 1953, Young shocked the world by leaving the silver screen for television. She explained in a 1986 interview that TV had more power than film as it reached a wider audience. But what if I told you there was more to it? Far more. Raised with a strong moral compass, Young was determined to only take roles that upheld her personal values. She fought against studio demands, often refusing to accept scripts she felt didn't align with her beliefs. But sadly, her defiance didn't come without consequences. She was suspended multiple times, sometimes for months, without pay. It was only a matter of time before she took control of her narrative. She passed away from ovarian cancer in 2000, having lived a life of success and dignity that only a few could ever match. Number 9. Vanity. Remember her? Vanity, Prince's iconic protege, was the unforgettable lead singer of Vanity 6, renowned for their hit song Nasty Girl and their bold, risque stage performances. Yet she suffered almost everything under the sun, including overdose, complete renal failure, complex kidney diseases, and multiple surgeries. But before the near-death experience that propelled her into both sobriety and evangelical Christianity, Vanity was, well, not vain. Born Denise Katrina Matthews, Vanity was a woman of dazzling charisma and immense talent, whose life was as fascinating as it was tumultuous. Rising to prominence in the early 1980s, she became a symbol of glamour and rebellion under the mentorship of Prince, who envisioned her as a female reflection of his own artistic persona. As the lead singer of Vanity 6, she won the hearts of audiences with provocative performances and hits like Nasty Girl, but underneath the sensuality was a life plagued with the mundane. Her career in entertainment started in the early 80s, when Prince discovered her beauty and stage presence. He immediately drew close and christened her Vanity, a name symbolic of allure and self-assurance, and shaped her into the centerpiece of Vanity 6. Speaking of which, have you ever stopped to wonder what the 6 actually stood for? Was it 6 albums, 6 members, or maybe it was just a lucky number they liked? Well, here's the real story. Leave it to Prince to come up with something cheeky. The 6 was the numerical representation of the members of the group. Only Prince could take something so cheeky and turn it into a signature detail. Classic Prince through and through. Anyway, Vanity was the centerpiece of Vanity 6, now known for being unapologetically risque and bohemian. She later went on a solo career with albums like Wild Animal, while stepping into the spotlight in films such as The Last Dragon and Never Too Young to Die alongside John Stamos. Unfortunately, after years and years of struggling with an addiction for the better part of the 80s and nearly dying on many occasions from its dire effects, she finally came to the long overdue conclusion that something in her life needed to change drastically. She felt Jesus calling her to abandon her old life while feeling how the devil breathed down her neck. This spiritual awakening marked the beginning of her journey to sobriety and faith. After recovering, Vanity renounced her stage name and severed ties with her past. Denise Matthews dedicated herself to Christianity, destroying much of her memorabilia, including albums, videos, and personal mementos. Yep, it was a complete turnaround. Out was the woman who provoked her sensuality to the world, and in was a minister traveling to churches worldwide to share her testimony. Denise reflected on her previous life with a mix of regret and gratitude for her redemption. She also established Pure Hearts Ministries in California, using her experiences to inspire others to find faith and purpose. Sadly, the years of drug abuse had taken a toll on her health. Denise suffered from chronic kidney problems, undergoing a transplant in 1997, and managing her condition with daily dialysis. The situation turned worse in 2015 when she was diagnosed with sclerosing encapsulating peritonitis, a rare and severe kidney disease. Despite her declining health, she continued to express her unwavering faith, even leaving much of her estate to her church. She passed away on Friday 15, 2016, at the age of 57. Her ashes were scattered off the coast of Hawaii, symbolizing a final return to peace after a life of turbulence. Though vanity may have dazzled as a pop icon, it was Denise's spiritual journey that defined her legacy, one that would be remembered for years to come. You can say the same for our next actress. Number 8. Dolores Hart. Once an in-demand Hollywood actress, Dolores Hart was fast rising to the top of the industry. Her innate ability to bring passion and realism to her acting was top-notch, and she was close friends with the king himself, Elvis Presley. With the world at her feet, Dolores shocked the entertainment industry and the world when she decided to give up everything to become a cloistered Benedictine Roman Catholic nun. Would you blame them, though? As a rising star, Dolores had a clear path to Hollywood royalty. She was related by marriage to famed singer Mario Lanza and was often compared to Grace Kelly. Yet she broke off her engagement to Los Angeles businessman Don Robinson and left behind a promising career to pursue her spiritual vocation. Her departure was not just surprising. It was a seismic shift that reverberated through the industry. Born Dolores Hicks on October 20, 1938, in Chicago, Illinois, Hart's early life was far from glamorous. Her parents, Bert and Harriet Hicks, separated when she was just 3 years old, leaving her to split her childhood between Chicago and Los Angeles. But hey, despite having a challenging start, young Dolores carried an inner resilience that would define her future decisions. After adopting the stage name Dolores Hart, she landed her breakthrough role alongside Elvis Presley in the 1957 film Loving You. Their chemistry on screen was electric, and boy did Hollywood go wild when she shared an on-screen kiss with Mr. Presley, his very first. As you'd expect, Hollywood quickly took notice, and Hart found herself in high demand, starring in hits like 1958's King Creole and the teenage comedy Where the Boys Are 2 years later. She even made waves on Broadway, earning a Tony Award nomination for her performance in The Pleasure of His Company in 1959. But behind the glittering success, Hart felt a deeper calling, one that was ironically sparked by Elvis Presley himself. During a break on set, Elvis handed her a Bible, sparking conversations about faith that resonated deeply with her. It may not have been much at the time, but this encounter, combined with personal reflection, planted the seeds of her eventual decision to leave the industry. And then it happened. In 1963, at just 25 years old, Dolores Hart made the shocking decision to quit acting, a choice that shocked the nation to its core. Hollywood had already crowned her as a rising megastar, and the pressure to stay in the limelight was immense. It all came to a head when one of her directors, enraged by her decision to leave, issued a harsh ultimatum: walk away today and you never work in Hollywood again. But Dolores Hart's conviction was stronger than the allure of fame or the industry's fury. Without a shred of regret, she turned her back on the silver screen and never looked back. Unfortunately, not everyone could see things from her perspective. Contrary to what you might expect, Dolores' decision to leave the industry at her zenith was met with a mix of shock and flat-out outrage. Fans couldn't believe the turnaround, and her colleagues thought she was making a big mistake. However, they were all proven wrong. In the years that followed, Hart embraced her life as Sister Dolores at the Abbey of Regina Laudis in Bethlehem, Connecticut, eventually becoming the prioress. And no, she never regretted her actions for a second. In fact, her extraordinary story was later chronicled in the Oscar-nominated documentary God is the Bigger Elvis, which reignited public interest in her life and showcased the peace she found in her calling. Interestingly, Hart has also spoken about how her Hollywood experiences not only informed her faith, but also strengthened her commitment to her spiritual path, bridging two vastly different worlds in an extraordinary way. Love it or not, Dolores Hart still believes she made the best decision of her life. And that's all that really matters, right? After all, it's her journey, her choice, and her peace of mind. Who can argue with that kind of conviction?
Just like me, they long long to be close to you.
Nathan, we're trying so hard to keep these kids off drugs.
Number 7. Rick Moranis. There's a big reason why every baby boomer loves Rick Moranis. He was the face of 80s and 90s comedy, beloved for his dorky yet endearing roles in classics like Ghostbusters and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But while it's undeniable that Moranis is a natural entertainer, what if I told you his career as an entertainer began in the early 70s? Yes, he was a radio disc jockey in Toronto under the on-air name Rick Allen. By the late 1970s, Moranis had teamed up with Winnipeg writer Ken Finkelman, producing a series of live comedy performances and television pilots for CBC. These projects, while modest in reach, buttressed the future star's penchant for satire and absurdity. All he needed now was a breakthrough. Unfortunately, he didn't have to wait long. With comedic potential as clear as day, Moranis' big break in the industry came when he joined the cast of Second City Television in 1980, despite never having performed in a stage troupe. His impressions of celebrities, from Woody Allen to musician Michael McDonald, were brilliant, but it was his portrayal of Bob McKenzie that became iconic. The Great White North sketches, created to fulfill Canadian content requirements, were so popular that they led to a Grammy-nominated album and the cult classic film Strange Brew in 1983. Refusing to stay stagnant, Moranis relocated to Hollywood the following year, landing roles in Streets of Fire and the blockbuster Ghostbusters. By the time he starred in Little Shop of Horrors and the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids franchise, Moranis had firmly established himself as a household name. However, his life took a tragic turn in 1999 when his wife, Anne, passed away from cancer. Devastated, Moranis made the difficult decision to step away from show business and live in silence. Though his roles were never vulgar or inappropriate, he felt the industry no longer aligned with his priorities. As a single father, he chose to devote his time to raising his 2 children, mourning his wife's passing, and deepening his faith. His decision was respected by fans and the industry, who in one accord mourned his loss. After turning down a cameo in 2016's Ghostbusters, Rick Moranis explained in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter that he hadn't retired from acting, but was simply being more selective about his future roles. With the door left ajar, who knows, maybe he'll surprise us in a future Honey, I Shrunk the Kids remake. Stranger things have happened. From Moranis' quiet departure to a life centered on family and faith, we move to the next actor on our list, whose story is equally captivating, yet entirely different. Number 6. Colleen Townsen Evans. When it comes to child actors of Hollywood's golden age who were destined for greatness no matter how long it took, is there a more fitting name than Colleen Townsen Evans? Known for her striking brunette looks and natural charm, Colleen seemed set for stardom in the late 1940s, yet her journey was topsy-turvy. Born on December 21, 1928 in Los Angeles, Colleen was raised in a devout Christian family. She was a Mormon who later became Presbyterian. Despite her parents getting separated at an early age, Colleen pursued acting at just 15 when she joined a dramatic company in Los Angeles. A talent scout saw her work there, which led to her signing a contract with Warner Brothers. Initially cast in minor roles, Colleen's off-screen presence gained more attention. She graced magazine covers, with critics and well-wishers counting the days until she became a superstar. After all, she had the talent and, most importantly, the looks. Her breakthrough came in 1947 when 20th Century Fox signed her. Colleen became the face of an extensive publicity campaign with a photographic calendar promoting her image to homes, offices, and barracks nationwide. Major studios began grooming her for success, and Hedda Hopper was quoted as saying that Colleen Townsen was going places. For years, she remained uncredited in sentimental comedies until landing a featured role in the 1948 drama The Walls of Jericho. Her performance, combined with her fresh-faced charm, earned her a spot on the cover of Life magazine, where she was celebrated as one of Hollywood's most promising newcomers. She followed this with 2 more films, the quaint comedy Chicken Every Sunday, and most notably, When Willie Comes Marching Home, alongside Daly and Corinne Calvert in 1950. Ever heard the saying, "Leave while the ovation is at its loudest"? Colleen seemed to take that to heart. In 1950, at the height of her career, Colleen made a life-changing decision to leave Hollywood and devote herself to faith and service. Inspired by her spirituality, she joined the Hollywood Presbyterian Church and later married Lewis H. Evans Jr., a seminarian from the San Francisco Theological Seminary. Together, they embarked on a life dedicated to ministry, humanitarian efforts, and championing human rights, forging a path that left a lasting legacy beyond the silver screen. She briefly returned to acting in the 1950s, but only in religious-themed films like Oiltown, USA, and Souls in Conflict, produced by the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. These projects resonated with her values as they aligned with her commitment to using media to share spiritual messages. Colleen and Lewis Evans later relocated to Washington, D.C., where Lewis served at the National Presbyterian Church. During this time, Colleen focused on humanitarian efforts, addressing issues such as racial and religious discrimination, human rights, and women's roles in society. She worked closely with her husband in ministry and contributed significantly as a board member for World Vision. In 1986, she made history as the first female chair of the Billy Graham Crusade, further highlighting her dedication to faith-based advocacy. What do we make of it? Personally, I think it's inspiring. Hollywood may have been where she began, but her life's work extended far beyond the silver screen. She was a bird destined to soar, and honestly, that's something worth celebrating. Coming up next, we have
Pat Boone and Family Hour. Starring Pat and Shirley Boone.
Number 5, Pat Boone. Singer, actor, author, TV personality, philanthropist, and composer. Pat Boone is one of those rare entertainers who truly did it all. During his recording career, Boone sold nearly 50 million records and delivered 38 top 40 hits while being a familiar face in Hollywood films. Where do we even start from? For a time, Boone was Elvis Presley's biggest rival, and until 2010, he held the record for being on the Billboard charts for 220 consecutive weeks with at least one song charting each week. Gen Zs and millennials may not acknowledge this, but during the 1950s and 1960s, Pat Boone was one of the true faces in entertainment, celebrated for his versatility and clean-cut image. You don't believe me? Just ask your grandma. As a teen idol, Boone was the man American families flocked to get a more restrained alternative to the raw energy of rock and roll. He also hosted the Pat Boone Chevy Showroom on ABC from 1957 to 1960, which featured guest stars like Nat King Cole, Johnny Mathis, and Andy Williams. His renditions of R&B classics introduced rock and roll to mainstream audiences, albeit with a polished style that drew criticism for overshadowing the work of black artists. Despite the controversy, though, his influence on popularizing the genre deserves much appraisal. He and Presley, for all of their rivalry, were good friends who almost single-handedly shaped the niche. His film career started strong, but projects like State Fair and The Main Attraction, both in 1962, struggled at the box office. The cultural shifts in the 1960s left Boone's wholesome appeal feeling out of place in an era dominated by the boundary-pushing artistry of acts like the Beatles. Like that wasn't bad enough, the 1960s brought significant changes for Pat Boone, both personally and professionally. His marriage to Shirley Foley hit the rocks due to his alcohol and hard-partying lifestyle. Plus, his career was on a massive decline. The musical and acting star was on a free-fall course until he had an epiphany: religion. Shirley's connection to the charismatic movement inspired Boone to renew his faith, leading the family to become vocal advocates for Christianity. Apart from saving a rocky marriage, Boone's newfound faith led to a world of opportunities. The couple toured together and released noteworthy gospel albums such as The Pat Boone Family and The Family Who Prays. Things were finally looking up, and it only soared from there. In the 1970s, Boone established Lamb and Lion Records, which supported artists like his daughter, Debbie Boone, whose iconic hit, You Light Up My Life, became a defining song of the era. True to his convictions, Boone turned down songs and movie parts with Marilyn Monroe and other sex icons because he feared they might violate his moral principles. His work in gospel earned him a place in the Gospel Music Hall of Fame and showcased his commitment to faith-based artistry. Boone also became a motivational speaker and a conservative political commentator, further shaping his public image as a devout Christian and cultural figure. Looking back, there's a clear reason why Pat Boone's career never achieved the enduring pop culture resonance of Elvis Presley. Stars who turn down roles or opportunities for moral, conservative, or religious reasons often sacrifice their mainstream appeal. And unfortunately, Boon is no exception. Yet there is a silver lining. His influence as a teen idol, gospel pioneer, and advocate for family values will never be forgotten. Number 4. Gary Cooper. What makes an actor legendary? Is it the accolades they amass, the roles they embody, or the legacy they leave behind? Gary Cooper checks every box. Widely regarded as one of Hollywood's finest, Cooper mastered the art of understated brilliance. From magnetic screen presence to silent charisma, only a few in the industry can hold a candle to him. And don't even get me started on his pedigree. With a career spanning 36 years, Cooper appeared in over 80 films, conquered nearly every major genre, and bagged 2 Academy Awards for Best Actor. Why wouldn't the American Film Institute rank him among the greatest screen legends of all time? Cooper's dominance wasn't just in his acting. He was a top 10 film personality for 23 consecutive years and among the highest earning stars for 18 years, a feat few can match. His performances in films like High Noon and Sergeant York showcased a new kind of hero, one who exuded simplicity and moral fortitude. He wasn't just playing roles, he was redefining them. But what's even more fascinating is the story behind the man himself. Gary Cooper wasn't the rags-to-riches tale Hollywood loves to tell. His father was not only a prominent lawyer, but also a Montana Supreme Court justice. He was born into a filthy rich family that lived in a sprawling 600-acre ranch in Montana. Can you believe that? While silent film stars were living from paycheck to paycheck, a young Gary spent his summers learning to ride horses and enjoying the rugged beauty of the West. Getting into Hollywood was far from being financially feasible. It was a search for purpose, a strive to make a name for himself. After studying art and briefly working as a cartoonist, Cooper moved to Los Angeles in the 1920s. Hollywood was transitioning from silent films to talkies, and Cooper seized the moment. He started as a stunt writer, but quickly rose to prominence with his first sound film, The Virginian, way back in 1929. But while the Western hero role stuck to Cooper's name like a bandage, the star refused to be typecast. He searched for success in other niches with films like A Farewell to Arms and The Lives of a Bengal Lancer. Mastering romance, adventure, and drama, he transitioned to Mr. Deeds Goes to Town and Meet John Doe. Like Thanos racking up the Infinity Stones, Gary Cooper was excelling in just about every film genre. He was on top of the industry, the nation, and the world, but his personal life was far more complicated. Married to socialite Veronica "Rocky" Balfe, the couple had a daughter, Maria. On the surface, their life seemed idyllic, but Cooper's numerous affairs created significant emotional strain on his family. His high-profile liaisons, including one with Patricia Neal, were tabloid fodder and a source of turmoil. Worse, Cooper's health was on a rapid decline, likely exacerbated by his personal challenges. Amid this chaos, Cooper dug deep to find a spiritual transformation. During a family trip to the Vatican, Cooper had a moment of epiphany, where he began to reflect on his life's emptiness despite his success. He finally saw the error in his ways and how to fix it: a cordial relationship with God. Gradually, he started attending church with his wife and daughter before getting baptized into the Catholic Church in 1959. Later that year, he confessed to Barry Norman that his conversion was never for sainthood. All he wanted was to be a better man. In 1960, Cooper was diagnosed with prostate cancer, but he faced his illness with grace and faith. As the actor lay dying, he said, "I know what's happening is God's will. I am not afraid of the future."
Please forgive me.
I do, Caleb. You're forgiven. I love you.
Number 3. Kirk Cameron. Although Kirk Cameron isn't a golden age actor in the traditional sense, I can't help feeling he represents a pivotal moment in entertainment history. Born just as the industry transitioned into a new era, his life and career echo the patterns of stars from classic Hollywood: rapid rise to fame, a dramatic personal transformation, and eventual withdrawal from the mainstream. Besides, he was born just when the Golden Age curtains were drawn. Like the actors who came before him, Cameron's journey was one of fame, fall, and unwavering faith, making him an intriguing figure worth exploring. Born on October 12, 1970, to an average household, who would have guessed Kirk Cameron's family would eventually have deep ties to Hollywood? Cameron became a global star, and his sister, Candace Cameron Bure, also achieved fame as a child actress. But here's the fun part. Contrary to names like Gary Cooper and Loretta Young, who were born into religious homes, the Camerons were a tight-knit family without a centerpiece religion in their lives. Yes, long before Cameron embraced God and Christianity, he identified as an atheist, considering religion irrelevant rather than outright rejecting it. Anyway, Cameron's entry into Hollywood began at a young age. He appeared in commercials before landing his breakout role in Growing Pains in 1985, where he played the mischievous yet lovable Mike Seaver. The show catapulted him to teen idol status, earning him a Golden Globe nomination and making him a household name. What could get better than that? Well, a lot, really. Growing Pains wasn't just a hit movie. It was a cultural reset that placed Cameron as one of the top faces of 1980s television. The bigwigs instantly took notice and splashed a gazillion roles to him, like Listen to Me and Like Father Like Son. But while Cameron was basking in the industry's delight, little did he know a life-changing transformation was brewing. Initially dismissive of religion, he began questioning his beliefs after attending church with a coworker. Through sermons and books like Josh McDowell's More Than a Carpenter, he came to embrace Christianity, an outlook that reshaped his persona and profession. His newfound faith caused friction in Growing Pains. He requested changes to storylines he found morally objectionable. By the early 2000s, Cameron had largely stepped away from mainstream Hollywood, choosing instead to focus on Christian-themed projects such as the Left Behind series and Fireproof, which became one of the highest-grossing independent films of 2008. In recent years, Cameron's outspoken faith and conservative views have drawn both praise and criticism. Yet, he remains steadfast, emphasizing his commitment to live by biblical principles rather than societal expectations. He has organized campfire revivals to inspire faith-based living and authored books promoting Christian values in families. Speaking of promotion, if you're enjoying this rundown of the Golden Age's faithful, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and stay tuned for more fascinating stories. You can't afford to miss what we've got next, starting with another actor who took an unexpected path. Number 2. Jane Wyman. In Hollywood, selling your soul is often the price of success. Yet there are rare instances when the redemptive power of faith steps in to change a life's course, as in the case of Jane Wyman. Born on January 5, 1917, Sarah Jane Mayfield's early years were shaped by loss. Her parents divorced when she was just 4, and by the time she was 5, her father passed away, leaving her in the care of middle-aged neighbors. Though they were kind, they led humble, uneventful lives, leaving Wyman to dream of life as a Tinseltown star, where success meant a life of comfort and luxury. Slowly but surely, Wyman's breakthrough came after years of playing small roles. It started with the 1932 films The Kid from Spain and The Lost Weekend in the 40s, where she gained praise for portraying the empathetic fiancé of an alcoholic writer. By the time she completed her Oscar-winning performance in 1948's Johnny Belinda, it became clear to the industry that Wyman was a force of nature. Her role as a deaf-mute teen earned respect from her peers and cemented her place in Hollywood history. Many historians still make reference to her stellar performance. Despite the acclaim, though, Wyman remained modest and introspective. Her acceptance speech for the Oscar was famously brief. Unlike the other Golden Age stars who were addicted to the fast life that came with fame, Wyman preferred the quiet dignity of her craft. She loved the riches that came with acting, but wanted nothing to do with the baggage. Who knows, maybe that's why she was so successful. Throughout her career, she received a total of 4 Academy Award nominations, including one for The Blue Veil, a film that resonated with Wyman on a profound level. Why? Well, at the time, Wyman was recovering from the pain of losing her child and a divorce from Ronald Reagan. It was a difficult period for the actress that she never truly recovered from. The Blue Veil's story of a mother grieving the loss of her newborn mirrored Wyman's own pain unlike any other. She cried her heart and soul into the movie and got an Academy nomination. It was here, amidst the backdrop of St. Patrick's Cathedral, that Wyman began her walk to the Catholic faith. After her career slowed down in the 1960s, Wyman withdrew from the public eye, focusing instead on her faith and charitable work. She became a generous benefactor to causes close to her heart, including Sacred Heart Church in Palm Desert and the Arthritis Foundation. Father Lincoln recalled one of her donations, a $100,000 check to improve the church's facilities, which was more than he had ever received as a priest. She also supported the Covenant House and Our Lady of Angels Monastery in Hollywood, where she found solace and spiritual fulfillment. When she passed away on September 10, 2007, at the age of 90, she was buried in a simple pine coffin, dressed in the Dominican habit she would have worn with pride. Following her death, Father Lincoln described the former actress as a woman unafraid of death. She knew her soul would be changed infinitely for the better, so she walked with peace and faith. On her bed were rosaries, prayer books, and a pack of cigarettes close by, the perfect picture of a life of personal sorrow, professional success, and ultimately, spiritual redemption. But hey, if there's one Hollywood star who truly deserves the spotlight at the top of our list, it's this unforgettable Golden Age star. Baby boomers, this one's especially for you. Can you guess who it is? Here's a hint. She's not a man.
We was gonna be married tonight, me and Frank. I was gonna be a lady for him and everything. How was it trying so hard?
Number 1. Betty Hutton. Famously known as the incendiary blonde of Hollywood in the 1940s and 50s, Betty Hutton captured the hearts of audiences with her boundless energy, powerful voice, and undeniable presence on screen. While Jane Wyman's early years were marked by quiet, reserved nature, Betty Hutton's childhood was anything but serene. Raised in Detroit during the Great Depression by a single mother who worked as a bootlegger, Hutton began performing as a singer at the age of 3, when she entertained patrons at her mother's speakeasy. Her performances on street corners and in local clubs led to her discovery by orchestra leader Vincent Lopez, who brought her to his band. Wondering how she grew to love the industry? That's a whole different story. It all started when she watched a Charlie Chaplin film. Enthralled by the legend himself, Hutton swore to her guardian that she would become a star and make her mother stop drinking. She wasn't kidding. She quickly began getting one break after another until the Broadway producer Buddy DeSilva became the production head at Paramount and brought her to Hollywood. From her first film in 1941, Hutton consistently wowed audiences, but she could never escape the wounds of her childhood, especially the lack of a father figure. In 1952, a serious injury on the set of The Greatest Show on Earth led to a battle with prescription drug addiction. This was the beginning of a downward spiral for Hutton, culminating in her departure from Paramount and the end of her promising career in Hollywood. Despite brief periods of success, including her own TV show, The Betty Hutton Show, her personal struggles, including sadness, alcoholism, and the fallout from 4 failed marriages, overshadowed her professional life. After losing her close friend Judy Garland to a drug overdose in the 70s, Hutton felt as though her own life was spiraling out of control. She was consumed by the weight of her past and feared she would meet a similar tragic end. But it was during a time of recovery, in the midst of her addiction battle, that something extraordinary happened, a meeting that would transform her life. It was Father Peter McGuire of St. Anthony's Church in Portsmouth, whose kindness and respect for others caught Hutton's attention, and soon their paths crossed. The actress found solace in Father McGuire's understanding. For the first time in her life, Hutton felt like she could be vulnerable and embrace her pain, something she had never done before. "Betty, you're just a very hurt child," he told her, and that simple statement became the catalyst for her profound spiritual transformation. She embraced Catholicism with all her heart and even cried as she walked down the aisle to receive Christ. Would you blame her? Hutton was overwhelmed by a sense of peace and love she had never known. She carried her rosary wholeheartedly, a constant reminder of her newfound faith. Determined to further her education, Hutton completed high school studies under Father McGuire's guidance and later earned a master's degree in liberal studies from Sal Virginia College. She went on to teach drama at both Sal Virginia and Emerson College, where she found fulfillment in shaping young minds. She worked hard to ensure no one had to go through the pains she had before walking in Christianity. Betty Hutton aged gracefully and spent her final years in Palm Springs, California, until her death in 2007. She was aged 86. The moral lesson? There's always a path to redemption. Despite their struggles, both Betty Hutton and Jane Wyman overcame Hollywood's unforgiving demands and found redemption and peace through the transformative power of faith. If that's not a beacon of hope, I don't know what is. Though we had lots of fun making this video, it's your turn to pick up the conversation. Which of these stories stuck with you the most? Is there any name you'd have loved to see? Smash the like button and keep the conversation going in the comments below. Hungry for more untold Hollywood secrets? You're just one click away. Grab a snack and click the video currently displaying on your screen.